Hello, hello. Good evening. My name is Heike Dempster. I'm the Associate Director of Public Relations and Outreach at YoungArts. My pronouns are she, her. The YoungArts campus is situated on the traditional homeland of Native nations, including Tequesta, the Calusa, the Taino, and today the Miccosukee and the Seminole. We pay our respects to the elders past, present, and future and recognize their continued existence and contributions to our community. Now, thank you all for joining us this evening. This is an info session dedicated to the design arts discipline at YoungArts. Of course, we want to encourage all artists aged 15 to 18 or in grades 10 to 12 to apply to the YoungArts National Competition. I have a few housekeeping notes before we get started. So this info session is being recorded so we can share it on our YouTube channel and to anyone who couldn't make it this evening. So if you want to protect your privacy, please change your screen name to first name only. If you have any questions at any time, raise your hand, use the chat. Please do not send any direct messages to any of the speakers or the staff on this call. So please just use the chat feature instead. And again, if you want to protect your privacy, change your name to your first name. So yeah, and the same if you want to introduce yourself verbally and speak up. Now, let me get started and introduce all the speakers. I have my wonderful colleague, Nidra Ward, Associate Director of Winner Programs at YoungArts. We have the Design Arts Panel Chair, 2003 winner in Visual Arts and US Presidential Scholar in Arts, Chad Travieso. And we have 2019 winner in Design Arts and 2020 US Presidential Scholar in the Arts, Mia Palomba. Chad Travieso is an artist and designer, as well as the co-founder of Yeju and Chad. He's a 2003 Young Arts winner in Visual Arts and a US Presidential Scholar in the Arts. He creates participatory, architectural, and research-based projects that reinforce social bonds in public spaces. His past work has been commissioned by or organized in collaboration with the Architectural League of New York City Department of Transportation, New York City Department of Parks and Recreation, the Cleveland Public Library, and the Children's Museum of Manhattan. His honors include a Young Arts George M. Perez Award and a United States Artist Fellowship in Architecture and Design. He currently teaches at Columbia's Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation and Parsons School of Design. He holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Maryland Institute College of Art and a Master's of Architecture from Yale University. Mia Palumba is a 20-year-old Latin artist from West Palm Beach, Florida, and is entering her third year at Tufts University and the School of the Museum of Fine Arts. In the 5-year combined degree program, she studies engineering psychology at Tufts and focuses on illustration, animation, and textiles at SMFA. She seeks to understand the society she functions within and why the socioeconomic structure that organizes daily life exists. She is drawn to researching how environmental degradation and climate change affects people today and the development of support structures and safety nets to ensure equitable access to resources, shelter, and health of our future global population as we enter a new epoch in history. This is where she turns to design as a mindset and possible channel to solve these larger issues. Raised in the tropical dream of Florida, she witnesses firsthand effects of climate change and global warming on her local community and draws from her own lived experiences as a Colombian American, and she believes in magical realism to create her current work. So I pass it off to Chad. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Chad Travieso, he, him pronouns. I'm so happy to see so many people here, and thank you for joining us. So just a brief sort of overview of what to expect today. We'll be explaining what Young Arts is and what the Young Arts experience is, as well as going through the application process and the kind of expectations that we have for the portfolio that you all would be submitting. I'm assuming that since you all are here, you might already know a little bit about Young Arts, but maybe some of you might know more than others. Maybe some of you might have friends who went to Young Arts or did Young Arts Week. But we'll just expand, and then there'll definitely be a lot of time for you all to ask questions. We're going to try to dedicate a good chunk of time to questions, but of course, you could be asking questions in the chat throughout, and we might be able to answer them throughout our presentation. So I'm going to start by, as Heike mentioned, I'm a Young Arts winner from 2003. So I went through the process myself, but I'm currently one of the panelists. So I'm the design arts panelist along with Yvonne Lin and Lucia Cuba. What a panelist basically means is that we are the ones who will be looking at your portfolios, but we will also be present during Young Arts Week, which we'll explain a bit more in just a bit. But Young Arts, I'll speak from my own experience. Back when I was at Young Arts in 2003, there wasn't a design arts program. There was only visual arts. And actually, I wasn't doing design back then anyways. But I think this across the board and all the different disciplines of Young Arts, I think a lot of Young Arts winners can relate. It's a really life-changing experience because you get to meet like-minded people from all over the country who are making amazing work. And I personally went to a arts high school. Some of you might go to an arts high school, some of you might not. So, you know, it seems like I already was around people who are artsy, but the thing is that once you go to Young Arts, you actually meet people who are making art from all over the country and making art in very different ways. And I think that's what really expanded the way that I saw art. And it really changed the way I drew, it changed the way I thought. And I'm still friends with a lot of the people that I met during Young Arts Week. So it's a really amazing opportunity. Of course, Young Arts, they're known for this award, the Young Arts Award, and I've mentioned Young Arts Week a few times. And basically what that means is when you submit your application to Young Arts, you know, you have the opportunity of being selected as either a finalist, an honorable mention, or a merit winner. Those who are selected as a finalist get the opportunity to go to Young Arts Week. And Young Arts Week happens in January, in the beginning of January typically. What happens is if you're not from Miami, you get flown to Miami. If you're from Miami, you drive over. But you'll go to the Young Arts campus and you'll spend a really amazing week with other people within your discipline, but then you also get to meet people from all the other disciplines, right? So you might be in the design. The fun thing about design arts is that even within design arts, it's extremely interdisciplinary. So you will be with people who are doing fashion, people who are doing architecture, people who are doing graphic design, people who are doing product design, all accessory design, jewelry design, all doing stuff together. And then on top of that, you'll meet people in visual arts and people in photography and people in writing, people in dance and theater, music and voice. And it's a really amazing week, as I mentioned. So I'll pass it over to Mia because Mia experienced Young Arts Week more recently and in the design arts discipline. So maybe Mia can share a little bit about her experience with Young Arts.
Hi, thank you guys so much for having me. It's so nice to be able to speak to people who are interested in design currently. So yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I was a finalist in design in 2019. And so I'm from West Palm Beach, Florida. So I drove to Miami for the week. And yeah, basically just like from the moment I got there, it was kind of dreamy. Like we stayed at this nice hotel, and my roommate was in the writing discipline, so everyone is paired up. You're in roommates, you have a roommate in the hotel and where you stay, and everyone's paired up with someone of a different discipline, and you all eat meals together and everything. So it was just so cool to meet people who are doing kind of related things to me, people who are doing music and very different things for me. So yeah, that was amazing. And the time we spent together during like sessions and on different like tours of galleries and studios during the design week was just so like mind expanding, because I was shown so many different like careers and types and like ways of making design and art, and just so many different like professionals in the field who are practicing. So it was really great at such a young age to know that like that was a possibility for me even. And yeah, it was one of the first times I was taken seriously as like an artist and designer. So that was definitely like a really elevating experience. So yeah, it was amazing.
Thank you, Mia. And yeah, Mia touched a bit on, I forgot to mention that as a panelist, what we do, we're kind of your mentors throughout the week, but then we also invite people who are in the field professionals, some of whom you might have heard of and might be very famous, to come and either lead a workshop or what we call master class, or to show their work to you all. So it's a really fun and experience, because you're also making stuff, and it's very experimental in some ways. So I also want to mention that one of the other great things about YoungArts is that your connections to YoungArts, if you are selected as one of the winners, as a finalist, honorable mention, or merit winner, your connection to YoungArts doesn't end with the award and the Young Arts Week. You become part of a family, you become part of a network. So you can apply to opportunities that are very specific to Young Arts winners, that are only for Young Arts winners or past Young Arts alumni, rather. There are opportunities to apply to be a discipline coordinator, or a resident, or an RA, a resident advisor, to be there at Young Arts Week and experience it, not as a winner anymore, but as someone who will also act as a mentor to those who are coming in future generations. And I've been, Heike mentioned that one of my honors was the George M. Perez Award, the Young Arts George M. Perez Award, and that wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for my connection to Young Arts, right? So there are some really amazing opportunities, and I'm sure Nidra could expand a bit more on it later, but I wanted to go into talking a little bit about the application process and what we mean by design arts, because I think design art, well, it's the youngest discipline that Young Arts added, I believe in 2014. And I think, design is an interesting thing, because we get applicants who are doing all sorts of really amazing things. But we're also, I think, one of the disciplines that doesn't get as many applications. So these info sessions are really great to kind of get as many people to apply as possible. But we also want to be very clear about what we mean by design arts. So I'm going to actually share my screen and just show this PDF. I'm not going to read it all the way through, but I'm just going to kind of stop and highlight very specific points in the PDF. This PDF you can find on the Young Arts website, on the application page. I'm sure, there we go, there's a link in the chat. But I think it basically explains what we mean by design arts. Can you all see?
Yeah, we can see.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, so design arts. So what we mean by design, or designers in this context, and asterisk, design can mean so many different things, and it's a really expansive field. So I want to make sure that you all understand design can mean many different things, but for the sake of this application, because we need to kind of simplify things, we are considering designers as people who are agents of change, or another way of framing it, of people who kind of reimagining our world by creating new forms, new products, new processes, new experiences, right? So it's very much about innovation. And that's, I think, something that is really important. So what we don't mean by design is illustration, comic book art, concept art, character design, and gaming design. Again, not to say that these things can't necessarily be innovative. Of course they can. There's some really innovative illustration, comic book art, concept art. But for the sake of this application, and please, we will have a lot of time for questions. And if you fall within this sort of blurry area, we could talk it through a bit more. But just to clarify, design, what we mean is and we kind of go into more specifics here. We mean architectural design, product design, graphic design, fashion design, but we also mean multi-design. So in architectural design, what we mean by that is design of buildings, of interiors, of landscapes, environments. We also, are including set design in this year. We haven't in the past, but I guess we are this year. Product design, what we mean by that is industrial design, furniture design, toy design, vehicle design, right? So any kind of product or sort of industrial design, I think is kind of more full encompassing term. Graphic design, what we mean by that is communication design, packaging design, book design, signage design, right? So that's self-explanatory there. And then fashion design, design of clothing, garments, jewelry, accessories, shoes, and costume design. I think we could also, again, costume design and set design, we could get into parsing that out a bit, but we're also including that. And then multi-design is you don't necessarily, even though I believe the application asks you to self-identify with one of the design disciplines, you can actually have multiple design fields within your portfolio. And I'm actually going to show you all some examples of past portfolios that did that. And there's no you could have a purely architectural design portfolio. That's great, but you could also have a portfolio that has fashion and architecture and product design in it, and that's also great. So they're both great, and we accept both. Yes, and another thing that we first mentioned in the beginning, explaining the week, if you are a finalist and you're part of the Young Arts Week, you actually will have your work exhibited in an exhibition there's an opening and everything, and it's really, really fun. So, but here there's like a note about it. If you are selected as a winner, you will be part of an exhibition, and a curator will actually select a piece for the exhibition. So some of the requirements, we're asking your portfolio to be 10 individual pages or images of at least 2 projects. In the past, we used to get sometimes someone would just send an entire portfolio of just one project. And even though I can appreciate, getting into the details of a project and really kind of dissecting it and the only issue we found with that is that we couldn't really evaluate the full breadth of that applicant's skill level or full breadth of their talent, right? We could see that they're very talented. They made one really great project, but we really wanted to get a sense of, okay, but like, does this extend to other projects, right? So that's why we're asking at least 2 projects. I think, 3 is probably a better, 3 or more, but I wouldn't say 10 distinct projects. I think you could have, multiple images that show different aspects of a project. And again, I will show some images of past portfolios, and Mia will also be sharing her portfolio for you all to get a sense of what we mean by 10 individual pages. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean 10 individual projects, and we'll show some examples. And again, it has to be within the listed examples. So your portfolio should be a design portfolio. So we've gotten this in the past where we have a portfolio that's maybe 60% architecture, and then all of a sudden we have 4 images in the portfolio are a painting that is not architectural and it's not design. It's a beautiful painting, but it belongs in the visual arts portfolio, right? So I recommend that your portfolio be strictly within the design field. Again, I also want to put an asterisk. I also acknowledge, because I myself am someone who makes art and design, and there's a very blurry line. I think Mia also makes art and design. There's a very blurry line between art and design, and we acknowledge that. And we also encourage people to submit design projects that are more on the conceptual side. It might not necessarily be purely practical, purely marketable type of design work. We are interested in projects that are talking about social issues or conceptual, but sometimes some projects kind of wander more into the visual arts side. And if we see a portfolio that's more on the visual arts side of things, we might recommend it for the visual arts people to look at it if we feel it's high quality, but it doesn't necessarily fit within the design parameters that we've set. Maybe, I don't know if there are any questions so far, because I'm like throwing out a lot of okay, I'm just going to keep going then, and then if people have questions, we will open it up for questions at the end. But please, if you have questions, make sure you write them down or maybe ask them in the chat, so you don't forget. So another
sorry,
thing
chat.
is that yes.
Someone did send me a direct message. Please make sure that you send your questions to the actual chat for everyone to see. So will there be a class or a similar info session for painting, drawing portfolios? So yes, that would be visual arts, and that did already take place. But we can send you a link to the recorded info session for visual arts.
And I see Aditi has a question that's a really great question, is relevant to what I was just talking about. Is UI, UX design allowed for the design art portfolio? I'd say yes, but if your design is more about, or if your portfolio is more about coding or something like that, then maybe that's not necessarily something that we would judge. We're very much looking at the visuals, right? So the UI UX would maybe fall within the graphic design component. I mean, it's somewhere between product design and graphic design, but you have to make sure that it's beautiful, it looks good, and it of course it needs to function. So that's the UI UX design part. But yes, the answer is yes. Oh, on that same thread. Actually, I'm not sure if I know what Arduino projects are. Maybe Aditi, if you could expand a bit, you could also unmute yourself and explain what Arduino is.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so Arduino is basically kind of like a coding software, I want to say, but it's not like just coding. You can build physical things with it too. So I was just wondering if that's something that's also allowed in the portfolio.
I don't know Arduino, but I would say apply, and
Okay.
we would make that determination once we see the portfolio.
Okay, thank you.
We do want to make sure that the work that is submitted is original to the person, and I know there's some programs out there and software where maybe the design is generated by the computer, and it's not the hand of the designer or the artist isn't as clear. So I think that gets kind of in a blurry area where it's difficult for us to determine the skill level of a designer. But it sounds like this potentially is not that. But yeah, please apply in any case. If you're not sure, and if I'm not sure, then it doesn't hurt to apply. Okay. All right. There's some other questions here that I think I might be able to touch on as I go through this. But if not, please make sure to ask them again, because I see that someone asked like what kind of technical details. And I think this gets at the next bullet point here, where it says to help us understand your design process. We asked that 2 of the 10 images or pages show preliminary process images / sketches and/or preliminary models / mockups that specifically relate to the project's evolution and development. And I think this is really important because, and I think kind of touches on the Arduino too, where we want to see your proficiency in being able to think through models or think through drawing, right? Because that's a very important part of design. And we acknowledge that some people might be more 3D people and might not necessarily be. I think we used to require just sketches, but now we're expanding it to sketches or models, because some people just work in 3D and they just make amazing models, but their sketches, their 2-dimensional sketches might not be at that same level. So we are asking you all to submit these sketches because we get to really understand your thought process and the evolution of a project. And I believe one of the portfolios that we'll be showing you shortly does that really well. So I think that if your process is more about like the kind of coding part, and there's no visual, then you know, we don't really get to see that sort of design process that we're speaking of, the kind of more visual side of the design process. Did that answer the question about the technical part too? I guess maybe we're not necessarily asking you to submit patterns or anything like that. That's not what we're interested in. If you're a garment designer or a fashion designer, we're not interested in you submitting, you know, the kind of pattern. We're more interested in the design, the idea behind it, right? And Mia will be showing her portfolio where you'll see how beautiful the work is and how nicely photographed it is. And we'll get at like some of the tips and tricks, the do's and don'ts of portfolios in a bit. But you know, we can see the technique by seeing the garment worn on someone or seeing the garment on, you know, preferably on a model. But I know sometimes, you know, if you need to use a form, that's fine. But we're not looking for, you know, same with architecture, for example, you know, section drawings and plan drawings are great, but you don't have to send us like a construction detail of something. You know, that side of architecture is less relevant as the more kind of design part. And I think sections and plans and renderings and perspectives and all of that is great, but you don't necessarily have to send us like technical details of you know, a construction detail or anything like that. Did that answer that question? Okay, great. And then finally, I will, I think the rest, I'll kind of end with this third bullet point. And then I you know, there's some kind of technical things that you definitely want to read through and follow the directions. Number one thing, follow the instructions, please, because there's some like very important things to follow here. But on just kind of the high level looking at things here, the last thing that we're asking you to do is to submit 1 to 2 page statement that describes or comments to the panel on your portfolio on how it relates to you as a designer. So this is also really important because it also gives us a chance to understand where this work is coming from. There are tons of people who can, you know, use software these days. I mean, you could learn, you know, software on YouTube and do some pretty amazing things and you know, some, you know, really technically, you know, virtuoso things that people are doing. But we're, you know, we're sure the technique is important and is great, but in a way, we're also very interested, and in some ways even more interested in the ideas behind the project, as I mentioned before. So this statement gives us a chance to understand the meaning behind something, or your personal connection to something, or the kind of concept behind something, or the importance within a kind of social political framework that you're trying to respond to, right? So these are really important things to mention in the statement. So, you know, we're if someone submits us a shoe design, for example, well, like what does this shoe mean? Like what is this design? Like how is it innovative and what is it speaking to, right? Or is it just like a cool shoe, right? Like if it's just a cool shoe, then maybe it's not as interesting as something that's like has like meaning to it, that goes deeper and is more connected to you as a designer. All right. So the rest of things are like, you know, media and specificity, specifics that definitely you are going to want to follow. And follow the instructions. But I think maybe we can through and, you know, the kind of order that you went with, and then I could quickly go through some other portfolios.
I'm sorry, I think you, at least on my computer, you sort of froze a little. I didn't catch like the last bit of what you said.
sorry about that. No, I said maybe you can share your screen and show us your portfolio and talk through the designs that you made.
Yeah, so sounds good. Let me pull that up. Okay. Okay, should be in here, I think. Ooh, 1 second, let me move this bar. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put it like this. Okay, so so this is my YoungArts design portfolio. I applied in my junior year of high school. I also went to a design arts high school in South Florida called Travieso School of the Arts. I don't know if you've heard of it. But yeah, so I was able to kind of work one-on-one with some of my art teachers and my art classes. And one of my painting professors encouraged me to submit to YoungArts because all the seniors at my school were required to just to, you know, make a I don't know, to apply to it, sorry. And so he encouraged me to apply my junior year because he was like, oh, it seems like you have a portfolio ready, like you should really go for it. So I, at the time, mostly focused on fashion works that kind of blended the line between like sculpture and functional design. My works were definitely more conceptual. Let me just run through these. And so I use a lot, I'll just quickly run through and then kind of go into more depth, but I used a lot of like reusable materials and recycled materials, and a lot of my works were attempting to sort of change the perception of that material and just experiment with like form and color and shape and how things laid on the human body and form. So these are some drawings and designs and just my thoughts about the pieces. And yeah, so one of the main threads in my portfolio was that all of these garments were made from recycled materials. And so in my community, I had access to this place called Resource Depot, where people could donate old art supplies and old like recycled materials. So like through an art program there, I had access to all like these different beads and pom-poms and cardboard and stuff. So with this project, just because we're here, this project is made out of like beads and pom-poms, and I just really wanted to experiment with color and how like different types of movement within the piece, like with the skirt image. I included like a still of the skirt in motion to show sort of how I attached these strands of beads to the skirt, and that they're attached at the top and they're, you know, able to swing as the person walked or moved. And I also included this image of like each individual strand, so that this overall single page, which is like considered one page in my application, was actually able to show like two different aspects of one garment. So I definitely encourage that with your applications, is to use your pages very wisely. And so like the most I would ever, the most amount of images I would include on one page is 3. And the like for like this one, it's all of the same part of the dress, like the general dress and like the top portion of it. So they're just kind of details that offer more information that you wouldn't just get from one still image. Like this one, you can see what the back of the dress is like and how it looks sort of from a profile. This one, you see the full, how it looks on the full figure, and like a front on view of the front, where you can see and make sure that when you're taking your photography to adjust, like even if you just take it on your phone. I think I had a camera that I was able to use either from like school to rent out to take these pictures, but just try and go and take pictures of your work if it's a 3D work on like a cloudy day, not too sunny, not too bright, and just try and have good lighting, good consistent lighting, and make sure that you're able to really zoom in on the image and see detail, and able to, like, you know, just show your pieces in like a very clean way where there aren't too many distracting factors. I found these colored, like, painted walls like in a downtown area near where I live, so I drove with my mom and we jumped out of the car and took some pictures, and it's really as simple as that, is finding just like a clean background that's, you know, white or cream or color, whatever, and just try and good lighting. It's really it really makes all the difference. And when uploading images, like these were all in a sketchbook of mine, so I took the time to try and scan them and compile them in Photoshop. But you could kind of use any image editor, but just try and like make sure I tried to clean things up and make sure that everything was legible and visible, and sort of have different elements that even if you couldn't really read the writing, you could sort of understand my thought process for like one thing. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Anyhow, so yeah, that's kind of my thoughts for sketchbooks. Oh, and so in this part, I kind of wanted to show some of like my paintings and drawings and like visual ideas I had for my pieces. And like at the time I was in like a sophomore or junior in high school, and I was making these pieces, and I didn't have like an iPad, or I didn't have access to tablets or fancy computers. Like I had watercolors and pencils and pens, and, you know, I had time and effort, and I was really into it. So, you know, it's not like you really need, if you're not super skilled with graphic design, or, I mean, obviously if you are, but if you're not super skilled in like technological stuff, you know, definitely don't feel intimidated by other people. As long as your ideas and thoughts are presented clearly and in this clean and understandable way, that's the most important. No, I don't feel like there will be any judgment if like your work isn't like as like a design school is going to teach you, because obviously like we understand that like you're a high school student who is really passionate about design, and not like you have all the training in the world that you get in college and later and stuff like that. But anyways, so yeah, this is an accessory piece. So yeah, again, just what it looks like on a mannequin, what it looks like on a person, and just trying to show as many different aspects of one thing as possible. So yeah, I could keep going into detail on each piece, but if there are any questions in general, we could go for that too.
Well, I'll just jump in and just comment. Oh, sorry, am I breaking up again?
No, you're good.
Okay, cool. Thank you again for sharing, and I think something to take note from Mia's portfolio, and it kind of gets back at that question about technical detail, because I think what you do really well here is that in your photographs you give us details, so we really get a sense of the materiality of the work, but then you also have some drawings. Actually, the drawings that you have that show the how things are kind of put together are actually really helpful. So, you know, you don't necessarily have to have those types of drawings in your portfolio, but they are helpful in helping us understand the way you thought through how to make this thing. I think the other thing with your projects were that you were very invested in the where the materials came from, and using non-traditional materials to make jewelry, and found materials and recycled materials and salvaged materials, right? So you really make that very clear in the way you presented it. But it was intentional, right? And that was like a big part of the concept of the work. So it made a lot of sense for me as portfolio to have a bunch of details and to have, so the point I'm trying to make is that really think through the narrative of what is your portfolio, or what does this project and that project and this project, what is it that you want to tell us about it? And then the way you document it and the way you present it should be telling us that story, right? It shouldn't just be like photographed the same way, with bad lighting. Like Mia said, lighting is a really important part, but then the angle that you photograph it, so you could show us that little profile or that back, that is so important. So thank you so much, Mia, for sharing. Maybe I could really quickly, I'll just go through a couple of other portfolios. I'm just going to go fly through those because I want to have a lot of time for questions. So maybe Nidra, maybe we'll start with Eleanor's portfolio.
Okay, you got it. Can everyone see?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so Eleanor was more in the product and graphic design, and actually Eleanor did some UI UX as well. So that connects to that question. But what I thought was really, what we all thought was really impressive about her portfolio, one, it's graphic design, but it with purpose. She made a series of works. This one was packaging for a sort of tampon packaging that was inclusive. It was so gender inclusive tampon packaging. So and did a lot of work and activism within her school, within the around gay rights and LGBTQ rights, right? So I think there's more to it than just like cool graphics, right? There's actually several things happening here. If you can click through, because I think she has some images of her sketches, and yeah, so Juno it's a period app. So that person that asked about UI UX, you could really see how Eleanor was thinking through the identity of this app, and her sketches here show different variations of the Juno identity and branding. But then again, it's really thinking through it's connected to her activism, connected to that past it's a different project, but it's still connected to that We Bleed project, right? So I think those two projects are I think the two I wanted to highlight in this portfolio. And if we could go to Zoe's portfolio, that'd be great. Oh, actually, sorry. Keep scrolling through, Eleanor. I think maybe she has some more sketches that I forgot to. Yeah, keep scrolling through. But you can see some sketches in the sketchbook. So the sketches can be sketches from an iPad, but it can also be like from sketchbook, like Mia mentioned. All right, let's go on to Zoe's.
Okay.
And then Zoe is also fashion designer. Her portfolio, the reason I wanted to point out, it's really beautiful, impressive work, but I wanted to show that if you scroll down, you'll see that she has mostly fashion, but then, and you can see how, the work is presented on a mannequin, but it's also presented on models, but then she has these really stunning drawings. And then you'll see that she has some furniture design and architecture. So this furniture design / architecture project, which is very similar in aesthetic to her fashion work, but she describes herself as a fashion designer, but she does architectural she has an architectural sensibility to her work, and was doing some furniture design. So just to emphasize that, even if you don't have to just show fashion, right? If you're kind of dabbling in other design fields, and the work you feel is strong enough to submit, then please, by all means, we're totally open to multi designers. So that's it. Those are the reasons I wanted to show those portfolios. But I think we have like 15 minutes for questions. Otherwise, we could keep talking, but I want to definitely open it up for questions.
I kind of lost track of the chat here, going back and forth from sharing, but I'll start here. For an industrial product design portfolio, are we allowed to add text annotations to explain what each image is?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, you are. And that's why we frame the portfolio as pages and not images. You know, if we said images, then people would just send us like one image, which is also totally fine. In fact, we do want you to, like Mia said, if you are doing composite images, limit it to max 3 images. But of course, in industrial design and product design, oftentimes you have, you know, images and then text that's explaining what we're seeing. And that's totally fine. Yeah, you could totally have that.
I don't know if I think you kind of feel like you answered this already, chat, but in referring to the PDF that you showed, the bullet that says technical details be included in the 1 to 2 page statement, it sounds like the social context of set and costume design is just as important as the details of the work itself. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I would add, like, for example, for Mia's portfolio, and Mia, if you want to speak to this too, like a technical detail might be talking about the materials and where the materials were sourced or how things were put together, right? So when we're talking about innovation, we're not just talking about, I talked a lot about like concept and meaning, but we're also talking about material innovation, how innovation and how things are put together, formal innovations, right? So like, if that's an important aspect to your work, then please mention it.
Yeah, definitely in showing, at least like with technical details, just showing that there were like certain intentions and reasons behind it. If you're doing like a more conceptual or experimental piece that's sort of exploring a question or idea, like how something could be put together, definitely ensure to include, you know, those details of like, oh, like what would happen if I made a necklace out of corn husks? Like, well, this is how I think it would be put together. That's one of my pieces. But yeah, so the materiality like has like a huge, at least for my work, had like a lot of intent. So yeah, my details were focused on showcasing that.
And then we do have a hand raised to Mai. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes. Yeah. Thanks for giving me a chance.
Yes.
So yeah, thanks. So basically, my question is like pretty simple, I would say. By attending this session, the Zoom session, so I got a feel that this contest is more apt for people who are in high school and take art as their main subject, and like it's more of like graphic design, textile design and all that, and part of their education curriculum. If they create a portfolio, I mean, kind of more apt for those kind of people is what I got the impression. But for a normal high schooler who just fits in the age limit and having the art as a talent, not as an education. Let's say I'm very good at acrylic canvas painting, or I'm very good at watercolor painting. So if I am very talented in those kind of visual arts, and if I just present few of my arts, I mean like pictures, and showcase it as a portfolio, or let's say I'm very good at drawing, so will that still be holds good as an entry? I mean, that fits in this young artist contest?
It would, but under a different discipline. So we actually have 10 disciplines, and this is specific to design arts, but we also have visual arts, which is where drawing, painting, all of that would fit into visual arts. And I think we dropped in the chat, there was an info session that we held for visual arts in the past, which was also recorded. And if we could drop that in the chat again, but yes, there is a discipline that you would be able to apply to.
Okay,
but
so
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so that recorded session I'd be able to go through, correct?
Yes, yeah, we'll drop it in the chat again. It was put in further back, but we'll add it again. Yeah.
Okay,
Great.
yeah, thanks. So my next question is about the age limit. So because the deadline and the rule says that the participant should turn 15 in the year December 1st of the applying year. Let's say someone turning 15 on December 23rd. So can they be accepted?
Yeah, so let me just talk about the eligibility requirements now. Thank you so much for bringing that up. The requirements are either ages 15 to 18 or in grades 10 through 12 on December 1st. So if you're looking to apply for this year, it would be on December 1st of 2022. But it's either or. If you don't meet the age, but you meet the grade, you can apply. If you don't meet the grade, but you meet the age, you can apply. If you meet both, that's great. But if the person is not in 10th grade and not turning 15 until after December 1st, then they would look to apply next year.
Okay, so though someone turns 15 in the same month, meaning the December, but December 1st being the hard cutoff.
Yes, December 1st.
So
but
they
if
cannot
that
apply.
person is in 10th grade, they can apply.
Okay, got it. Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
I did want to comment. Oh, sorry, Nidra, did you?
No, go ahead. I was going to go back to the chat, but go ahead.
Oh, I wanted to comment on a certain aspect of May's question about what if you're just going to a regular high school that doesn't have like an arts program or a magnet arts program. And please apply. We've had actually more and more people, especially in the design arts, apply from schools that don't have arts program and students that are completely self-taught and their portfolios are amazing. Eleanor, for example, was a student that went to a high school she wasn't in a magnet arts high school, and she learned how to do all the graphic design herself. So we don't discriminate whether or not you're like. By the way, it's completely blind competition, first of all. So we don't even know what high school or anything about you. We just see your work. But having these information sessions and doing more recruiting, we're trying to get people from all over the country for all different schools and backgrounds to apply. So please, yes.
Yes, thank you for mentioning that. I was going to mention that it's blind. So the adjudicators don't know your name, your birth date, your school, what grade you're in. They don't know any part of that. All they receive is your images and your artist statement to go based solely off of those things.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a way to add a video into the portfolio if you want to demonstrate how something works? Can you insert a YouTube link, for example? So no, there is no video or link space to put a link to something else or a video in there, but you can absolutely describe how it works in detail in your artist statement. There are also fields within the application that say, asking what materials are used for each piece and the size of it. So there are detailed fields for you to enter information as well, but definitely you would be able to explain how something works in your artist statement for sure. Chat, do you want to add to that, or is that good?
No, that's good. Someone else asked about I see Michael also asked about film. So unfortunately, yeah, you can't submit video, but please describe. And the good thing, like Mia showed in her portfolio, you can have multiple images and multiple pages in your portfolio of one project. So it could actually show us, like, for example, Mia had that image where it's moving. It's not a video, but we kind of get the sense of how this piece moves, right? Just from that one image.
So this person asks, is you have an example of an architectural design portfolio? How is it best for those to be formatted? I think also we dropped in the chat a little while back, so maybe we can add that again if we haven't again, but there are past anthologies and exhibitions on our website. So you can find those on our website, and we'll also drop them in the chat. But Chat, do you want to go into how best those should be formatted?
Yeah, so actually my background is in architecture, so so I can say this, the architectural portfolios, for some reason, we often get, architecture portfolios often have like too many images in one and too much like text, and the text is really hard to read and the images are really hard to see. So if you are submitting, I mean, this is in any design discipline, make sure that you limit the number of images on the page to no more than 3, so that we could actually appreciate the images. If you have text on the images, make sure the text is big enough for us to be able to read. We're going to be looking at this on like my laptop, so it's not being projected really big. We're not printing it. We're going to be looking at it like the initial sort of review is going to be on like laptops. So just think about that, and think about the size of the text. In terms of the kinds you might want to include in architecture portfolio, you can have drawings, hand drawings, or computer drawings, like I said, plans, sections. You could also have details, especially if the detail, I meant it's not a requirement, you can have detail. You can have images of models. Those also, we've had some really spectacular architecture portfolios that's almost entirely images of different models. Like I said, you could have for your sketches, they could also be sketch models. So you could also have renderings. The renderings could be hand drawn. They could be, also done in the computer. But those are the types of things that you might submit. Yeah.
And I know we're almost at time, so I'll go through a couple more of these questions. How much weight do you put on the craft/skill level versus concept?
I would say equal amounts. They're both important. Of course, the skill level is probably the first thing that we notice, because going through a lot of different applications. Something I really quickly wanted to mention is, with your portfolios, you want to have like your best piece in the beginning and at the end. Like you want to like wow us. And then, we enter into the portfolio, and then we kind of get to know you a little bit better, and maybe some of your more experimental work is so you think about the narrative, think about the order in which you set up your portfolio. But I only mention that because, the skill it will be evident in just like the initial, view of the piece. But if there isn't a lot of meaning behind the projects, then even if you're like the most skillful drafts person, you might not win, because another project that has like maybe isn't the best drawing ever, but there's some really innovative ideas in there, and so skill is definitely important, of course, but concept is what's going to push you over the edge.
All right, so Michael asked about the film for 60 seconds, but I think what you're looking for is the visual arts portfolio, so you can submit a video for visual arts, but not for design arts, and that is the 60-second film for like performance art, or if you want to show process for visual arts, but that is a separate discipline to apply to. And then, can the actual portfolio be a PDF of 10 pages, or does it have to be 10 separate JPEGs? So it is 10 separate pages, because you are uploading each of the images in addition to the the fields for the title of the piece and the materials used and when it was created and things like that. So there are details specifically to each of those 10 images that you're uploading. And then we're at time. If there are any other questions that you all think of outside of this, please feel free to write to apply@youngarts.org, and we would be happy to answer your questions after this. As we mentioned before, this was recorded, so you all will receive a link to this to review. We also have a feature on our website called Ask an Artist, and that is where you can be connected to people like Mia, past winners, and past winners chat, who can help you answer some questions and also tell you a little bit more about what it's like to have a life in the arts. So definitely thank you all for joining us. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Mia. And yeah, if you have any other questions, feel free, and everyone have a good night.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.